All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for another live retail roundtable. This time we are welcoming Josh Orr, founder of Capital Commerce and a longtime partner of Management One. Welcome, Josh.
Hello, hello. It's good to be here. I love this group. I was talking about it with my team this morning. Like when we do stuff with Management One, it is a awesome group that always shows up.
Well, we have some folks piling in here. And before I turn it back over to you, Josh, I just wanted to go over a couple of quick housekeeping items here. And the first one is, this is an open panel discussion. So please, down below at the bottom there, use the Q&A function. Josh is going to open it up towards the end. E-commerce is always a very open topic that generates a lot of questions. So if you have any, please use the Q&A down there. And one of the questions I usually get, even before we kick things off, is, are we going to send out a recording? And we absolutely are. We understand retailers have a super packed schedule. So if you do need to leave early, or if you didn't catch us on the live, we are going to send a recording out. So who is Management One? If you're not familiar with us, thank you for joining us today. Our main purpose is to provide financial security for our people, our clients, and our retail experts. And we do that with a focus on merchandise intelligence and education for independent retailers, sessions like these. We operate with a set of core values, including a generous heart, courage, curiosity, adaptability, commitment, and collaboration, like speaking with Mr. Orr here. So during the pandemic lockdown, our clients, like most retailers, had to pivot towards e-com, and it was just more of a necessity than anything else to keep the business afloat. And Josh was a huge instrumental force in helping a lot of our clients transition into that digital realm. And once things started opening back up, there was kind of this tendency to sort of move back into the brick and mortar space and get really comfortable there. And Josh was a great force in helping people realize that, no, you kind of have to focus on both. So now that we're about, 3 years removed from the pandemic lockdown, Josh is going to be coming back in here today to tell us about how you can take some of that brick and mortar magic, that experiential magic, and translate it into your digital space. So let me kill my screen here, Josh. I know you've got a good amount of slides to share, so.
I do. Good afternoon, everyone, or at least most of you. I think some of you, it's still morning. Nico, I think that's you. Hey, I have a favor to ask if we're able to. If not, no big deal. If we're able to make it where like the chat, like we can kind of all work together, that'd be awesome. Because what I would love for you to do is, and not you, Nico, you, those of you that are watching, is in the chat. I love like getting to see who's here, getting to see where you're coming from. And so put your name and what city you're in and the name of your store. And if you want, like put your social handle, put your like your main place where we can find you. I think it's also fun to go and connect with each other and collaborate together. And so if that shows up, if not, like feel free, chat the host and panelists. I love to hear from you. I'm going to be keeping my eye on the chat, as I know Nico will as well. And there's that Q&A feature. And so I purposely have left enough time where at the end of our session, where I'll have plenty of time to go into your questions. So I would love to help you and give you very specific advice on how you can grow your online sales. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. We have Lisa from Soul Shine Boutique in Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania.
Oh, great. It's good to see you. So I don't think I can. Oh, there we go. It's in the Q&A. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, let me get my slides shared and then we will get going. So today, the name of this talk is More Than a Store. At the end of the day, like I know that most of you are brick and mortar retailers, at least I assume so, but you're more than that. Like there is more to who you are than that. And so what does it look like to be more than a store and really gain traction online? Now, before we get into it and before I get into all the content, I realize that some of us have not met. Maybe you've never heard me speak or never seen me in anything. So my name is Josh Orr. I started Capital Commerce. It's possible you knew us when we were called Streamline Retail. We did do a rebrand, kind of our doubling down on helping brick and mortar retailers gain traction online. And so we are Capital Commerce, and our agency helps brick and mortar retailers gain traction in their online sales. And we do this through design and development, and then really putting the entire feasible plan in place to grow. So it's not just about having a site, it's about the whole plan. All right, so let's get into it. I don't know if you are like me at all, but a lot of times, like when I talk to people about New Year's resolutions, that's one of the things I started thinking about this week. Was I went back in my journal and I was looking through my goals, what things I wanted to accomplish in my life, what things I wanted to accomplish in my business. I'm sure a lot of you had goals as well, things that you hope to accomplish in 2023, which, by the way, as the side note, I want to remind you, yes, we're more than halfway through the year, but the best athletes are the ones that are able to win in the fourth quarter, or the ones that are able to win when it counts. So it is not too late for you to accomplish those goals that you set out. But one of them really had a lot to do around fitness and health and those kind of things. And I remember, I work out generally, but I was like, I'm really going to do this. And so I got into the gym and I started doing all the things. And I did that for about 3 weeks. Like, I started waking up early and doing all that stuff that I was supposed to do. And then I do that for about 3 weeks, and I look in the mirror, I get on the scale, and the needle hadn't moved as much as I wish it had. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. And when I think back at what I was doing, I was in the gym and I was like doing all the things, like whatever weird, awkward body movements I had to do. But I wasn't like busy focusing on things that actually produced results. I was busy, but I wasn't busy focusing on the right things. And when we think about e-commerce, I think that is how a lot of us approach it. We're busy, we're editing reels, and we're doing site updates, and we're doing X, Y, and Z to try to grow online sales, but it's not producing the results that it should. I don't know if any of you have ever felt that way. I know I have. And so, like, what's the difference when we focus on the right things? This is a great example here. The brand on the left, and I've changed names. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. They spent like $60,000 on their website. Wild that they spent that much. And they're online, and they do like 3 million a year in store, and their online sales is just a few thousand. And the one on the right spent way, way less than that. And their sales are multiple million a year, doing the same amount in their storefront. And what is it? Because they both have pretty sites. They both have those things. What is it that the one on the right focused on that the one on the left did not? And ultimately, it always comes down to 3 things. Whenever I talk to a retailer and I'm figuring out, like, okay, what's the disconnect? It's always around how you're driving traffic to your storefront and to your online store. Once that traffic's there, how are we converting that traffic into paying customers? And then retention. How are we not just getting the first purchase, but the second, third, fourth? And so what I want to do today is I want to give you the starting places of, if you're a brick and mortar retailer and you're like, okay, how do I take the success and the things that we're doing so well in store, and how do we translate that online? Do we have the chat going? Is that no? Okay. But it's good to see. I see a lot of familiar.
Yeah, we have chat up.
Oh, got it. I can't see I can do the host and panelist, but no big deal. All right. So what I want to cover today is a few things. First, I want to get into an idea that I call the new retail. I think we can all admit that retail has changed, and the way that we serve our customers just looks different now. So I want to get into that. And then I want to talk about how do we start to build a brand that goes across multiple channels? If we aren't just serving people in one spot, like, what does it look like to have a consistent brand look and feel? And then I want to get into the idea of bottling up the in-store experience. Because ultimately, your storefront likely does something amazing. So how do we figure out how to take that type of experience into your online experience? And then I want to take you through a fun one. One of the goals that I have for you today is that you can leave here with some quick wins, some things that you can do quickly to get results. And so I'm going to give you like 5 things. I call them 5 minutes to higher conversion. And this is data-backed stuff that you can change on your site to get results quickly. And then I want to talk about your first steps to online growth. If that's something that you're wanting to do, where do you start? How do you approach it? What should you do? So I think this is going to be a powerful session for you. And so my request is, take notes and try to implement. Like today, make the commitment to yourself that you can start with something. I'm going to give you some resources to implement it, but work to implement these things quickly. All right, so let's talk about the new retail. This is really the way that we're approaching e-commerce, really the way that we're approaching retail in general. I think a lot of us, when we started our businesses, we saw ourselves as a store. And our store has this incredible experience. And ultimately, our store is where we help people. And so it makes sense. Like most of us didn't set out to go start this company that sold through all these different places. Like we wanted to open a clothing store or a outdoor store, and because that's what we're passionate about. And then retail starts to shift. And so we start a website. And this website, ultimately is kind of about the store, but we're a store that has a website and a store that has social channels and a store that has all these other things. Now, the problem here is that there's a little bit of a disconnect. It looks like this. It looks like a website that has pictures of our store as the main thing. Everything is about our store. Now, here's what's fascinating here. In store, when someone walks in your doors, do you just start talking about yourself? Do you immediately start sharing your brand story? Do you immediately start sharing facts about yourself and all these things? Like, are you self-centric in store? Or when someone walks in, do you make the experience about them? Do you make it about what they're feeling, the problem that they have, the thing that they're looking to have solved? I bet you do that in store. But online, we make our experiences all about us. When we have a store that has a website, we have this massive sales channel that's really centered all about around us and not about our customer. And that creates this huge brand disconnect. So what would it look like if you became a brand? And a brand that has a connection and a relationship with its perfect customer. It understands their needs, it understands how they feel and what they're wanting, and is capable of solving their problem. Because ultimately, you do more than sell products. I think most of us can see that. Like if you're a clothing store, you don't just sell a dress, like you sell the confidence that comes in that dress. If you are a home decor business, you don't just sell furniture or accessories or art, like you sell the feeling of a home. We all do more than just sell a product, but when it comes to online, a lot of us just sell products. And so online, what would it look like if we were a brand? And a brand that had a connection with its perfect customer. And out of that, if you think about it, out of that connection that the brand and the customer have, you have an in-store experience, and you have an online experience, and you have a social media experience. And no matter where people engage the brand, you are able to help them and serve them. This isn't just about growing online sales. This is about showing up and serving our customer, which is, I think, why most of us got into what we do. And so what does it look like to do that through other channels? And that it looks like this. It looks like the site where your customer lands and they feel the same thing they feel when they walk in your doors. And so let's start with the brand piece. What should we start with when we look at starting to create a multi-channel brand? So if you think about what a brand has, it has a few components. And it so happens that most of them start with V's, but we have the visuals. This is kind of the obvious part. When we talk about having a brand, this is the obvious one that most of us think about. But then we have our brand voice, and then we have our brand experience. So let's talk about the brand visuals for a second. This is your fonts, colors, logos. This is your graphics. This is the store aesthetic. I think to a degree, visuals could probably be better replaced by the word vibe. It's not necessarily visuals, it's also the vibe. And what do I mean by this? When we think about our in-store visuals, the merchandising probably comes second nature to most of us. But there is a general vibe to the things that we're doing in store, but online, is there a disconnect there? Like if I blindfolded you and I took you to a corner in anthropology and I took the blindfold off, you are going to know where you are. Assuming you're familiar with anthropology and you've been in one of their stores, I'm sure you've experienced that. And if you go to their site, it is similar. There is a cohesive brand visually, and the vibe is there. Then you get to brand voice. This is the tone and personality of your brand. Now think about here, how they can be cohesive. In store, it's probably, you might be friendly in a certain way and funny and informal, but online, do we take on a really serious tone? And we have this disconnect within our brand voice. I don't know if that's you, but a lot of retailers that I see, there's this huge disconnect between the way that they talk in store or on lives and on video and the way that they talk in written copy. And then we have experience. And this is where I want to spend a lot of our time today. This is the way that we serve. This is the way that we bring our superpower online. Our superpower is what you do better than anybody else, and ultimately the way that we solve their problem. And when we can combine these three things, the visuals or vibe, the brand voice, and the brand experience, and we can combine all of those, that is what creates a brand feeling. Because ultimately, a lot of online sales is about the way we can help make people feel. I think that's true in store as well. A lot of times when someone walks in, the most important thing is not the words that we say or any of that, it's the way that we made them feel. And our website is the exact same. And when we can create that brand feeling, that's what creates that yes moment. Have you ever walked into a store and been like, yes, like somebody created a store for people like me. I didn't think this existed, but it does. My favorite store in the world here in Houston, and they're a Management One client. And I shop there all the time. And I remember the first time I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, Nordstrom meets REI. And I didn't think this could exist, but it does. And it's an unbelievable experience. And that's where majority of my wardrobe is from at this point. Now, let's get back to, all right, so we get the brand piece, and we have to combine our visuals or vibe. We need to take our voice, we need to take our experience into one. Now, how do we bring that into our online experience? Because I think that's why most of you are here. So let's talk about bottling up the in-store experience. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. And there's a few layers to the in-store experience. Like, right, there is the, when we walk in, and then as we're walking around, there's the things that we discover about the brand, and then ultimately the way that our problem is solved, and we leave with something that we're really excited about. And so I want to dig into the first impression. How do we take the first impression and what we're doing in store and translate that online? Then I want to get to your superpower, that thing that you do better than anybody else. And then I want to get to how you serve. Like, how do we take some of that service piece from our in-store experience and translate that online? Now, one of the things that I want to remind you of here is when we're talking about looking at the in-store experience and then bringing that to the online experience, we aren't looking for like feature for feature things. What we want to look at instead is, okay, what are we doing in store and why do we do it? And then how can we take that same why and what would do that best online? Because what ends up happening is if we try to say, what do we do in store? Now, how do we do that online without looking at why we do it? We say, well, we ask really good questions in store. So what should we do online? Let's put a chat bot. Well, the problem is that, let's be real. There's what? A little less than 100 people. And I'd be willing to bet that almost none of you have ever purchased from a chatbot before. So if that's the case, then what do we do? How do we take those questions and translate that online? So we always want to look at the intention behind the action before we get into the action specifically. So let's talk through the first thing. the first impression, which, by the way, is this helpful so far? Is this already starting to land and resonate? And you're like, okay, I'm getting the concept. I'm seeing where there maybe is a disconnect between my in-store and my online experience. Even before I've looked, I haven't even really gotten a website up yet. Great, got a lot of yeses. Hey, Karen, it's good to see you. It's been a while. All right, so the first impression, let's talk through that. Someone walks up to the storefront. This is such a fun moment. If I'm your perfect customer, it's likely that you've put a lot of thought and effort into how people feel when they come to your store. And ultimately, when we greet them, when they walk in, it's to make them feel what? They walk in and we're going to interact with them in some way. It's to make them feel something. And I think most of us would probably fill in the word welcome. And there's a lot of other words we could put in. We want them to feel warm. We want them to feel whatever. I think ultimately my goal when I look at retailers is we want them to feel like they're in the right place. Like this is a store for people like you. And yes, that includes the fact that you're welcomed. And online, how do we start to do that? Well, I want to show you an example. This is my friend Becca, who's also a Management One client. She works with Doug Hilfiger, who is both of them are some of my favorite humans ever. But this is Becca, and Becca is this fun, bubbly personality, a little like loud, like she's not loud, but it's just kind of like a loud personality, a little bougie, and she wouldn't mind me saying that. It's with full permission. And people that resonate with her are obsessed with her storefront, and they walk in and they're like, "Oh my gosh! Like I didn't know that someone could have this much pink. Like I didn't know that we could all look like we're ready to go to a Taylor Swift concert at any given moment." But in her store experience, that is there. It sparkles, it's pink, it's bright, it's loud. And before working with us, if we went to the store, let's think through that lens of, am I in the right place? And for a minute with me, just picture yourself as you love pink, like just you're getting ready to go to a Taylor Swift concert and you want to fit in. That's the mindset we're going to be in. And you land here. You land on this site. Now, my question is, do you come to the conclusion, yes, I'm in the right spot? Like this is a store for people like me. Chances are no, there's a brand disconnect. We've made it about the store and not about the customer. And so instead, by simply having a hero image that the customer lands there, notice that we didn't say like, welcome. We didn't say those words. Instead, we skipped over that and we got to the kind of copy that they're going to land and say, like, yes, like this is me. This is absolutely me. And so what would it look like for your brand to do that? And so I do want to offer some really cool free resources. We have what we call, it's our sales accelerator kit, and it has a lot of cool things that are going to help you hit the ground running today. And one of them is some Canva templates for that hero image. The hero image is that big one on the top. And what we want to do is have imagery and copy there that make our customer land and say, yes, this is a spot for people like me. And so you can get this accelerator kit at madebycapital.com/M1. Again, that's madebycapital.com/M1. And this is absolutely free. And we have some other things, like we have an SEO ebook, some email automation templates. I think there's even like our recommended like apps and themes and all of that cool stuff. But there's some templates so you can implement exactly what I just taught really, really fast. Because if you've ever used Canva before, you know how easy it is to use. All right, so now we got past the first impression. We're going to change that hero image, that first thing on our site, to be about our customer and making them feel like they're in the right spot. So now we can start to think, what do you do better for your customer than anyone else? This is your superpower. And I don't want you to think that your superpower has to be some like big, grand thing. Your superpower can be tops. It could be dresses. It could be, if you're looking for a dress for an occasion, you have to go to this store or whatever. And the thing here is, how would someone recommend you to someone else? And Then we want to start to think through, okay, how can we bring that superpower online? And there's some really easy, like low-hanging fruit ways to do this. And then there's some more robust ways that take a little more thought. So for like a gift store, this is the way that we're going to split up the types of gifts based on the occasion for it and that type of thing. It's not purely having a category-based navigation. We're bringing up the way that people find gifts. Or my friend Tara, she's one of the best stylists that I've ever met. And I know a lot of us are great at styling, not me, but a lot of you are amazing at that. But online, you have to become your own stylist. You have to click on tops and select a top, and you have to click on bottoms and select a bottom. Well, that doesn't necessarily work for people. Like, they need more help. And so on the product page, putting a complete the look where everything that's in that product photo can be purchased in one place. What if your superpower is not tangible? I would be willing to say that is like an in-store, like that's your personal superpower. I'd love to know what the brand superpower is. So if they said, if you're looking for this, you have to go here. What would that thing be? What would that kind of thing be? How would someone recommend you, if you're looking for blank, you have to go here? Because it seems like that's your superpower is a personal superpower, something you are amazing at, but your brand is not you. Your brand is not you. There is a difference and a distinction between you and your brand. So I hope that's helpful. Mind blown. That is the highest compliment. So thank you. All right. So this is an example of bringing that superpower. And sometimes that's just as simple as your hero image. So this is that low-hanging fruit that you can use our Canva templates and implement. This, Uncommon Goods, their superpower is the way that they can help you find gifts for anyone. Look at this copy. Dear hard to shop for gentlemen, you've met your match. Now, if you were married to this gentleman and you've landed there, I don't know about you, but like, I'm a grown-up and I just buy things I want. My wife has the hardest time in the world shopping for me because it's rare that I'm like, hey, I want this, and I just don't go get it. Well, if she lands here, she's like, yes, this is it. Like, I'm in a place where I can find a gift that my husband's going to love. Or simple things, like if you are the place for gifts, having copies like summer gifting. This is low-hanging fruit, but it's things that you're able to communicate that superpower. So, to use, this one, if you are their perfect customer, you land here, they're in the right spot, and their superpower. So now let's bring this one layer deeper with how you serve. This is the questions and the things that you do in your storefront. Well, how do we do that online? Well, I want you to start to think through the questions. What questions are you asking? What questions are they asking? And ultimately, what are all the things that lead to them leaving with a bag full of stuff that they are really excited about? And so when we think about this, there's a few ways that I like to approach it. There's what I call the 3 types of traffic. Think about your storefront for a minute. When someone walks in, it's likely that they're one of these 3. They're looking for a specific product. They want this black cricket shirt in size extra large, or they're solution based. They don't know that they're looking for this one thing. They just need something to wear this weekend. Or you have browsers. These are the people that stumbled upon your store. They're killing time or whatever. They're likely spending a little too much time at the front counter. And how do we capture each of these people? Because just like in store, there's some similar things that we want to do here. If that product base, this is someone walks in your doors, I'm looking for this. Well, what do? We point them to exactly where they can find the one thing that they want. Well, online, it's the same thing. Here, it's the way that our search functions. In most situations, did you know that the search is actually a feature of your theme? And so does our search actually guide people towards the things that they're looking for? And making sure that this is set up in a way that guides the customer experience well. Or, for someone looking for that, they may already be sold, but how do our product descriptions reinforce the decision? Like, yes, I want this item. Or solution-based traffic. This is the way that we have things set up for our navigation. If you're a clothing store, you may have dresses, but if you think about the way that people shop for dresses, some shop by the length and others shop by the occasion that they wear it. And others, might shop, by the style of the dress. There's different ways that people shop for it. We can structure our navigation in a similar way. And so, here's an example of a toy store where they, set it up by the category of things or the age of things. Like for a toy store, all of these things come in play, because when someone walks into a toy store, think about that experience for a second. If they walk in and they're like, hey, I'm looking for a gift for my son. Do they just grab 4 things around them and hand it to me and be like, great, here's 4 options for a gift for your son? Chances are no, they don't. They likely ask a follow-up question. How old is he? What are his interests? What do you are there things that you're working on with him? Are you wanting something more fun or educational? They're going to start to ask these things. Well, our navigation can be split up in a similar way, but what most of us do is we just build a navigation based off of our point of sale categories, but they don't have to be the same. We want our navigation to be set up like we would merchandise a store, and like we would ask questions, and we're guiding that experience the exact same way we would in store. Like go back to dresses that I said earlier. Someone walks in and says, I'm looking for a dress. You don't just hand them 4 dresses. You ask what for? What's the occasion? Because then you can start to make recommendations. Well, maybe your navigation could be set up in the same way. So what would it feel like to know that your site could serve people online just like you do in store? And then we have solution-based people. These are people that aren't looking for a specific product. They are looking for like something to wear this weekend. And so, here, this is an outdoor store, and this is further down on their homepage, but they have different ways where they're not splitting it up by category. They're splitting up by the adventure that someone would go on. And so here it's curated collections that guide the experience. That's different than your navigation. So it's not like you have tops in your navigation and then you have tops as a featured collection. There it's tops is in your navigation and back to school is on your homepage. And then we have browsing traffic. And this is your general site experience. Do we have a site experience that makes people want to stick around and shop through your site? So I want to remind you, we have this toolkit. It's free. It is awesome. Honestly, it's kind of ridiculous that we do this for free, but it's at madebycapital.com/M1. So I want to give you some quick wins. That's my goal for you right now, is I want you to leave today with some simple things that you can do. And so this is one of my favorite things that I get to teach. It's 5 minutes to higher conversion. And so one of the things that we did with a few clients of ours was we put like a heat mapping tool on their site. So heat mapping is where you can like ninja track exactly what people are doing on their site. And so that way we're not like making changes just based on like, oh, this sounds like a good idea, but based off of hard data of this is exactly how people are interacting. Because the weird thing about e-commerce is a lot of us have opinions on how it should work. But the reality is like there's a lot of data that shows like we may say we want one thing, but in reality, we buy based on something else. All right, so thing to focus on, number 1, focus on above the fold. Above the fold means here's a cute picture of my son, but if I load your website on my phone and I don't scroll at all, what do I see? And what I want to be able to do there is quickly answer that question. Remember that first impression? That first impression is huge because that's where within a half of a second, they are deciding, is this for people like me? And if it's not, if they don't come to that conclusion immediately, they're going to click back. And I think a lot of us thought, okay, but we can continue to kind of sell it further down the page. But what we found on average across all of our clients is over 70 or around 70% of your traffic does not scroll at all. 70% of your traffic does not scroll at all. And so what we want to do, hey, Nico, the link is madebycapital.com/M1.
Gotcha. I'll put it in there.
Yeah. It redirects somewhere else. And so I think that's what you were loading before. Okay, so they're not scrolling, and so this hurts us in a few ways. One, like we lost the opportunity to sell them or to serve them, really, not even just sell them, but to serve them. And so we want to make sure that we're able to serve them like we want. But two, if we can't answer this question, if we can't answer the question, who are you? What can you do? Like your customer needs to know who you are, ultimately what you can do for them, and if it's a place for people like them. And if they can't answer that question, then they're going to click back. And fascinating enough is like that actually hurts your SEO because Google's looking at your bounce rate. If I'm Googling like cute spring dresses and I click on your website and then I land there and I quickly click back, Google's going to be like, hey, that didn't look to be that helpful for that person. And they're not going to want to send more people there. And so it's going to hurt your SEO ranking. And I got the question, does it need to be clickable? I mean, absolutely. We always want to guide the customer journey. And I'm actually going to get to that a little bit more. All right, next thing you can do. So focus on above the fold. That is your number one priority today. It is huge, primarily on mobile. Number two, add a fake button. Now, this part is interesting. Is, a lot of times when we use like buttons that come in themes and that sort of thing, we can't control the experience. And that sucks. Like it's not great when we have this beautiful graphic or this beautiful thing that we made, and then there's like a button right on top of it. So what we do is we remove all of the theme buttons and we use a button from a graphic. Now, the entire graphic can be clicked. The entire graphic can be clicked on. But what we found is majority of traffic is going to click on that button. People like clear direction. People like knowing this is exactly what I need to do. And so they're going to click on that fake button. Now, what we found in data is without that button, less people click on that image. Without clear direction, they're actually not clicking on it at all. And it's safe to assume that that image is a primary focus of the brand. So imagine having this amazing thing that you merchandise in your store, but like people just weren't going to it because we didn't guide the experience. So how are we guiding the experience online? So add that fake button and it makes that super easy. Next, bring your superpower to your top navigation. Like if you have a great navigation setup, which I hope that you do, we had this brand, they had clothing in their navigation. Under that, this like mega menu, this big menu dropped out. And what we found were everyone was going clothing, tops, clothing, dresses. Everyone was in those two. And so what we did for them was we moved tops and dresses to the top navigation bar. And this had a massive impact on the way that people were shopping and ultimately their conversion rate. And so look at like, okay, what are these superpower collections? And let's move it to our top bar. And that doesn't mean that you couldn't get to tops or dresses from the clothing as well. Like they stayed in clothing, but they also appeared in the top bar. And then focusing on new wins. And I'll actually say two different things here. The two things that every single brand I know needs to have in their navigation, one is new and the other is sale. In every single and across all types of industries, not just boutiques, across all types of industries, the most two clicked on things on the entire website was the new and the sale. And I think those are two different types of shoppers, because some people just want to know what's newest and some people really just want to shop a good sale. And so making sure that you're adding those to the extremes, one to the far left, the other to the far right, but focusing on new, on whether it's your hero image, of course, in your navigation, but putting a huge focus on this is massive. And we saw this across multiple types of industries, even ones you wouldn't think. And so what are your next steps for online growth? Like, how do you start to gain traction? Like, ultimately, how do you get past what's holding you back? I had a conversation with this week with a retailer who was like, honestly, I'm starting to believe that I can never grow my online sales. I've tried for years and years. I have hired an SEO agency, and I got an ads agency, and I started doing emails, and I hired a social media manager, and we're editing reels, and we're going live, and we're doing all these things, but nothing is gaining traction like it should. And the problem that I see is that we look at what it takes to grow online. We look at traffic, we look at conversion, and we look at retention, but most of us don't look at all of it as one thing. We say, I just need to get my site in front of more people. I just need to improve my SEO. I just need better ads. I just need this one thing that is going to increase my traffic. And if I can increase that, that is going to do it. But what most of us need is that full plan. Like, how do we be a brand that serves our customer everywhere, and starting to build a cohesive strategy? How are we using social media and SEO and paid ads to increase traffic? But then once that traffic's there, how are we serving them online and actually making our site able to turn traffic into paying customers? But then not just how are we getting that first purchase, but how are we continuing to serve them and getting that second, third, fourth purchase as quickly as possible? And so going from being that brand that just has a site to that brand that has an incredible online experience. And so what I want to invite you to do, for those of you that are like, yes, I need to gain traction in my online sales. I set aside some time every single week to connect with retailers and talk about, and they're called the e-com strategy sessions. But what I want to do is kind of help get clear on your brand and your experience. And ultimately, like, what is it going to take to increase traffic, conversion, and retention on your site? Ultimately, I want to learn your goals, and I want to help you get crystal clear on what's standing in the way of getting there. Because for a lot of you, it's just not having that clear, like, cohesive strategy. And so if you're interested in this, I would recommend, like, book it now. I say that not to give some sort of like fake scarcity. These calls do tend to be booked out a little bit. And so I would schedule this kind of thing now. And this can be done at madebycapital.com/schedule. What we'll do is we'll send over some extra bonuses and training that's really going to help our call hit the ground running. And I look forward to connecting, because I think a lot of you have a ton of potential to gain traction in your online sales. And what I want to do is figure out what's standing in the way of you getting there, and what would that look like. And yes, if it seems like we're able to help you, I want to share what that looks like, and what would it look like for us to really guide that the whole plan, like helping put the foundation in place to grow. And then if we're not, my goal is that we're going to get clear on what's standing in the way, and I can get you pointed in a really good direction on getting that out of the way. And so if you want to schedule that, these spots are limited, but I would book that at madebycapital.com/schedule. Again, that's madebycapital.com/schedule. And again, I want to thank you for being here. I'd love to start to get into questions, and Nico can hop in and start to guide that through. The one huge shameless plug I'll make is, if you do not already, follow me on Instagram at RetailJosh. I share a ton of tips and strategy around growing online sales, occasional cute pictures of my kids and all of that good stuff. But I would love if you would follow me and all of that good stuff there. If you enjoyed this talk, shoot me a DM and let me know a takeaway or something that you got away from it. All right. So Nico, what questions do we got?
All right. Well, I think you actually did a really good job of addressing a lot of those questions on the fly. I will give folks a chance to add a few more in there. I actually had a couple that I was thinking of just while you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt, but while we're waiting for folks to throw in some of their own, one of the things that I see indie retailers get inundated a lot with is, you mentioned SEO a few times. So you see indie retailers are getting just inundated with these SEO companies hammering into them that they have to be on page one for every single thing in their stores. So how do retailers really balance that with the brand voice that you're talking about? Is that even really a good use of their time?
I'm not completely sure I understand the question, but
well, I guess
SEO...
what I'm saying is people get sucked into inserting keywords, and they really lose, they almost start to sound robotic, and they lose that brand voice that you're talking about. So where's the sweet spot?
Yeah, I mean, SEO is a little bit of like the punching bag of e-commerce.
Yeah.
It is the ethereal black box that, like, if I could just crack this code, all of a sudden I'm going to be living on the beach, drinking a margarita at 7 a.m. But the reality is there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of which has nothing to do with your site at all. And so really the thing to focus on here, I love, and in that toolkit that I gave, I have like my SEO ebook about where to focus, but it's what simple things can you change on your site, your page title, what needs to be in your page title, your collections, how are we not just naming it tops? But the cool part is if you're using an e-commerce platform, there is always an SEO title that
Yep.
you can keep the name of the collection tops, but go to an SEO title and call it like, summer dresses or summer tops or that kind of thing, more around what people are searching for. And your products, you can change SEO descriptions. And so to directly answer your question, that's the easy one, is just to change meta description, which is the SEO stuff, and then not focus on the actual stuff on the site. Because that's what a lot of people do, is they put a bunch of sentences that make zero sense
That's
on
the
their
issue.
homepage. And, we'll see paragraph for paragraph on the homepage. It's all there for SEO. And honestly, Google hates that stuff, because Google is not looking at keywords like they used to. They are looking much more at the site experience. And when people land on your site, they're clicking back. That is hurting your SEO way more than that paragraph is helping you. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Lisa asked to explain. Oh, sorry, you're the one moderating. I shouldn't take your job.
No, go for it.
But she has to explain the fake button again. Is it an image? But wouldn't that frustrate the customer? No, what I mean by this is, if you look here, this is a button. It's in the image, but the entire image is clickable. So when they click on the button, it does go right where they think it should. And so that's the thing, is like the entire image is clickable, but there's just a button that's inside of the graphic that it would kind of be like, picture if you had just like an open field, but you happen to spray paint lines on the ground and you were like, enter here. Like, you can walk through anywhere. You can just walk across the field, but you're going to find that there's the rule followers. Those people are going to walk through the 2 lines that you spray painted. That's exactly what you're doing with this particular image.
Yep. So Rachel's actually asking, do you work directly with retailers, other partners like the media company who does social media, to get that cohesive look and feel across all channels? I'm assuming you often see opportunities on other fronts than e-commerce as you work with clients.
I mean, we have a lot of partnerships with a lot of different brands like Management One and Boutique Hub and a few others in our ecosystem. Our jam and where our superpower is in helping brick and mortar retailers gain traction online by helping them bottle up their in-store experience through design and development, and then putting the plan in place around traffic and retention and all of those pieces. So that way the brand can grow sales in-store and online. So that's our superpower. I'm not sure where some of those things would fit into what we do best. We're really big on staying in our lane. But if you want to shoot me like a DM on Instagram at Retail Josh, I'm more than happy to chat with you about it. And Carly asked if Shopify is as expensive as web developers hint at, considering switching from WooCommerce, but is it worth it? Shopify is something that is able to, start really small, and then you can scale up and become an empire. Their plans start at like $30 a month. And the only reason to upgrade your plan from that $30 a month plan is as your sales volume increases, because you start to like save on credit card processing and that sort of thing. And so it's not that expensive of a platform. Obviously, like as you grow, it gets more expensive.
What about, I have a question, Josh, on
Sure.
above the fold. And a lot of our retail clients rotate their inventory constantly. It's one of the mantras that we hammer into them. Is there a rule of thumb with how often you rotate that imagery on your homepage?
How often do you merchandise your store? Pretend you're a retailer for a second. Think about how you merchandise your store. A lot of us, when we think about e-commerce, we think about it like a technology. It's a software. But in store, like the experience comes second nature, and we're merchandising in store and we're updating our website online. Instead, what would it look like to really think about it of you merchandise in store and you merchandise online? And so think about this for a second, like you have a few levels of the way that you merchandise. Some days you just are moving this thing from here to here and you're making room for that one new product. Other days you might be shifting a table around and taking half of the things off of it and moving it to its normal spot and whatever. And that, look at that online as like the featured collections, that type of thing. Other times, like you're changing the entryway table. You're changing, like, this is our big brand focus right now. That's your hero image. And then seasonally, like probably once, maybe twice a year, you're flipping the entire store. And that's like changing the color palette and all these things across the site. But what a lot of us do is when we treat it like one is software and the other is a customer experience, that's one of the ways that creates that disconnect. So I love to see it like merchandising. And if you plan a store merchandising update, plan a site update too.
One thing I will caution with some of the clients that we've seen, they use multiple carousel images on their homepage banner. And I don't know anybody that's ever gotten past a visitor that's ever gotten past maybe the second or third one. And I just want to caution people, if you are doing that, loading the page, you have to load all of those images and Google will count that load time in your page ranking. Rachel's also asking, do you provide services to keep up with the merchandising online? My boutique doesn't have the manpower to maintain the site very often.
No, I mean, the goal within our programs is to help put in the system that makes the site not feel like a silo where we're merchandise. Like, I don't think anyone would ever say, I don't have the manpower to merchandise my store. Like, we would never say that, but online it becomes easier to do. And so what would it look like to ask, instead of asking like, where could I get someone else to merchandise my site? We can say, how can I create a system to make this feel like one flow, feel like, it comes natural. We merchandise our store, we merchandise our site, we plan our social, we plan our email, it's all in one flow. And that's really our goal, is to bring the online side of things and the way that we're serving our customers online into like a full cohesive strategy, not in store over here and online over here. They really are all one thing.
So Jan is asking, I'm going to answer this one live. I sold my retail store last year. I am exploring a web store while I'm retired. Are your services available without a physical store?
No, we stay in our lane. So our services are only available, our goal is to help take the experience and really bottle up what's so amazing in store and bringing that online. And so the hard part there is if that store experience isn't there, then it would be kind of like a round peg in a square hole through our process.
Nan was asking, I feel like I need to hire someone extra to do my website work because it's way too overwhelming. How much should she pay hourly, roughly, ballpark? There's a wide range of options there.
Oh yeah, that's a bit of a broad question. The thing that I would encourage here is more just the way to approach the role. I can't give you an hourly range here, but there really is not like an e-commerce person. Honestly, like if we look online, we're not going to find this person who's an expert at Shopify. They know email marketing, they know social, they know paid ads, and they don't cost $90K a year. That is a very challenging role to get. But instead, we can start to think through, okay, what goes into growing this? Well, that's the visionary, the person who's setting for the vision of the brand. But then you have two sides to it. You have a tactical side, a doer, This is the person who's entering products, writing descriptions, publishing site updates, those kind of things. And then you have a creative, the person is taking your vision and bringing it to life creatively. Now we can start to see, okay, which one do you which one do you not do so well? Because most of us are really good at one, average at the second, and actively bad at the third. I am a really good visionary. I'm an okay creative, and I am a terrible doer. I'm just terrible at tactics. It's just not. But other people, it's just different. And so, which one is the lowest in your skill sets, and how can we start there? Because maybe you don't need a site person. Maybe you need a tactical role. Now, the cool part here is you get some economy of scale with your storefront, because this person can also enter purchase orders. They can help you manage your inventory. They act as a little bit of like an assistant to the retail business. And then you can equip them with training around how to do some of these pieces. And then maybe we move to the creative side, and it's someone for graphics, but then they're also doing in-store creative. They're also doing social media. They're doing these other pieces, and you can equip them with training, and you can do all these other things to help them. But that's where I would start. I wish I could give you a like specific range, but because that role just looks so different, there isn't one.
On the plus side, I mean, one of the silver linings of the pandemic is people have become much more accustomed to working from home. So the talent pool that you have to pull from in that capacity is now national, if not global. So I would go online, do some research, see if there is somebody that can do some of the tasks that Josh is talking about. You're not limited to just the people that are in your community.
Mm-hmm.
Amy was actually asking, and she's burying my next point here, but I'll skip ahead to it. So she's asking if you're going to be at Magic. So Josh is actually going to be at Magic, yes. And Josh and Becca, who he referenced in his presentation earlier, they're going to be joining our cocktail event at Magic on Monday, August 7th at 5 p.m. So if you're interested in some free drinks at Vegas and networking with other retailers and a really fun panel discussion with Dane Cohen here at Management One to discuss a little bit more in depth some of these topics, let me drop this in the chat. Go ahead and register. If you're going to be at Magic, go ahead and register for our free cocktail event.
Yeah, I am very excited. And yeah, and I'll be doing some stuff on the main stage as well, but very excited. The Management One event's always a ton of fun, and the level of retailers that are in the room is just unreal. So definitely make it a point if you're going to Magic to be there. I'm always there. I love the group. I do want to thank all of you for joining. Again, if you want those resources, that's at madebycapital.com/M1. So the letter M is in management, and then the letter 1. And if you want to connect one-on-one and really dig into your goals, what it's going to take to get there, what's standing in the way, and if we're able to help, getting into what that looks like, and if we're not, getting you pointed in the right direction, you can schedule that at madebycapital.com/schedule. So, Nico, thanks for having me. This was so good.
Josh, we always love having you in here, and these sessions, especially with ecom, are critical for our retailers. So thank you so much for sticking around for a little bit longer to ask questions. As I mentioned before, as soon as I kill this meeting here, we're going to upload this to our YouTube channel, and I'll send an email out to everyone with a recording of the event. But Josh, I wish I would be joining you in Vegas. I'm going to skip out on this one, but I'll look forward to seeing you in the next time.
Awesome. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.